Welcome. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council. Thank you for joining us for our weekly podcast, Innovation Matters. And today is the November 19th, 2020. We're knocking on Thanksgiving's door. We have a chance to be able to have a really tremendous leader in the Boise and Idaho ecosystem, and actually one of the top leaders on the planet with us today. But before we do that, I need to have a thought. About a month ago, I brought one of my, when I was growing up, one of my great movies that I love watching all the time, or actors, I guess would see Bruce Lee, right? And Bruce Lee said, "Do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." And I think what happens in our lives is that we all have defining moments that take place and areas that really hit us that we have to overcome. And especially with COVID-19, everything taking place, we have to sit there and realize that many of us are in difficult situations, and we need to find ways to make sure that we find the strength to endure these difficult situations that confront us. But anyway, there's a thought from Bruce Lee. And now that I've got Bruce Lee out of the way, I get to introduce Brad Wiskirchen, who is the CEO of Count and a tremendous leader in the Boise business community. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I assume you're referring to Bruce Lee because we have the same very comparable looking abs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, I remember, Brad, we were on the Salmon River and I saw those abs, and fear ran right in, just like you did.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Through my mind and all that stuff.
If you saw my abs, then you're the first person to see them since high school, I think. So I haven't even seen them since then. So yeah.
No, it was great. Brad, it's interesting. I sit there and I think about somebody who's done amazing things for the Boise and the Idaho ecosystem. And I can't think of anybody that's been so instrumental in growing one of the most amazing companies with Kinetics, which now is Count.
Well, and Kinetics is still ClickBank now. I spun Count off out of ClickBank.
Oh, that's right. So you kept Kinetics, and then when the CVC Capital Partners came in, Count was really when that became on its own entity, right?
Yep.
So, but I think when we think about this, years ago, you had the opportunity to start things when you had all this going on. We were always looking at talent demands, and you formed the Idaho Employers Software Alliance.
Idaho Software Employers Alliance.
Okay, so look at Idaho Software Employers Alliance, and you just started another group that's focused on fraud and cyber protection, right?
I did with AppDetects, Portman Square Group, and PlexTrack, basically showing the world that Boise is the center of all things security and cybersecurity. So everything from securing your physical assets and your who you hire and what they do and what access they have to things, to then pen testing and all the testing you need to do and the reports that you need from it. And the first is with Portman Square Group. The pen testing is with AppDetects, and then you get to protecting your brand and your apps with AppDetects, and protecting what the consumers in the world think about who you are, and keeping fraudulent app creators from taking over. And then obviously Count, which used to protect your payment transaction, but now protects your entire digital journey from the time the consumer logs into your site or logs into your app or sets up an account, all the way through every digital interaction, protecting against account takeover, fraud, et cetera, all the way up until the financial transaction, the payment transaction. So between those four companies, we cover soup to nuts, everything a corporation needs, and we all collectively represent some of the biggest companies on the planet, and it's all here within a mile of each other in downtown Boise.
That's awesome. So maybe it might be fun. I've had the chance to see that you have had. I mean, Count has received many accolades from several companies, organizations across the country and world. about, like, one of them was Forbes, who said that that there were like 7 cybersecurity firms to watch on the planet, and
Yeah.
one of those 7 was Count. I mean, talk a little bit about all of why do this focus on Count, and why has like Forbes made this great thing about Count being the company to watch.
Well, look, we've been very fortunate. We purpose built a tremendous product so that a lot of other players in the fraud space are cobbled together multiple other point solutions to create a solution. We've purpose built our entire solution, leveraging all those things that other companies would normally provide. Plus, we were the first to use unsupervised machine learning, and then we were really the first to use unsupervised and supervised machine learning to create true artificial intelligence. And we don't use that term lightly around here because of all the PhDs. It's got to pass the Turing test so that the well-informed and well-versed fraud solution representative within any company or fraud control representative within any company doesn't know whether the response came from a human or a machine. Same sort of thing. But we were the first to market with all those things. We invented and patented many of the technologies leveraged in fraud control. I think we're up to 39 patents. We filed 9 in the last quarter. And we've run the table this year on every major industry award. We've been named the world's top fraud control solution 9 years in a row, which is crazy to me. At some point, they got to give it to somebody else just for good measure.
Just because.
Yeah.
I know. I walk into your offices. And I see all these awards. You know, obviously the Idaho Innovation Award is one of the bigger ones here, but
clearly it's the most important one.
Yeah, and yeah, but the one that I thought you guys win everything, Brad. I mean, it's amazing, and it's not only something that you win like 1 year and then it's in like 5 years later you get another one. It's year after year you're recognized by these entities, right?
Yeah, we've won a lot of the Idaho Innovation Awards. Even 2 of us have won Innovator of the Year individually. We've been named a finalist or the Innovative Company of the Year, and like 2 times Innovative Company of the Year for Count. Kinetics was it once. Like, I don't know how many of those we've won, but a lot. And really it all boils down to, and the other thing is, like, every analyst this year has named us the top solution from Forrester and really everybody's named us the #1 fraud solution. So nobody has to take our word for it, but it's all because the stuff that we've built, purpose built to work together, works amazingly across the verticals and protects against every digital interaction. And we're the soup to nuts solution. So anybody engaged in digital commerce, there's an applicability to their business model, from online retailers to insurance companies to banks to you name it, to cross-border transaction companies like Remitly, who started here in Boise by Matt Oppenheimer. And he signed with us immediately after incorporating, and we've helped them grow to be just a giant company by being their fraud control partner since the day they created the business, basically.
Remitly is an amazing company, right? I mean,
fantastic. Matt's probably one of the best CEOs I've ever met in my life. If there's anybody that I could sit on a wall and watch for a day, it would be him. Just because I'd love to learn from him, but he's just a fantastic CEO.
Yeah, I understand he was a Boise High grad too. That's always good to have those around.
He was. In fact, I was his, this dates me, but I was his youth leadership advisor when he was either a sophomore or a junior in high school, which is how we became friends. And then obviously his dad and I, Skip and I, have been friends for a long time. But it's crazy to me to think this guy for whom I was an advisor when he was in high school now runs one of the payments industry's greatest companies in the world, period. And I'm just,
but I think
it sounds paternalistic, but I'm super proud of him. He's just an amazing human being.
That's no question about it. And I know that he, when he came and spoke here at Capital Connect a few years ago, he referenced that, Brad, how much that meant, your mentorship. I would say, but Brad, the point that kind of you were just talking about, how important has innovation been for Count to continue to be this company that meets your customers' demands, who are some of the top brands in the world?
Yeah.
How do you do that? And then how do you meet that going into the future?
Well, in the space we're in, you have to be innovative because the fraudsters are innovative and you have to keep one step ahead of them at all times. So we've launched, for example, this year alone, 2027 new products. As I said previously, 8 or 9 new patents in calendar year 2020, I think just in the last quarter. And our whole goal this year, for example, was I put this out there in Q4 of last year, probably December, and said 2020 is a year we're going to differentiate and disrupt. So we got D&D logos everywhere around the building, and D&D, differentiate and disrupt. And we've doubled down on hiring, particularly for our AI team. I think we have 5 PhDs in that group. And they continue to innovate. We've launched products this year that weren't even on our product roadmap, weren't even conceived on December 31st, 2019. But the team is so bent on innovation that they're doing it at a pace that I could never have imagined. So what we did this year is to underscore that. I eliminated the company's historical excellence award and put in the 2 awards that are given out quarterly, which are kind of the pinnacle of the business. One is for innovation, the most innovative team member of the year, and the other is for the most customer-centric person of the year, because those are 2 things, innovation and being customer-centric, and they go hand in hand. And we doubled down on our on a cash gift and an award that we give for everyone who files a patent. We doubled down. I think we went like 25x the size of the prize for the most innovative person in the company for the quarter. And the greatest part to me is that the innovation isn't just in the IT team or the AI team. Last quarter, it was awarded to somebody in the accounting team who came up with a totally innovative solution to a challenge the company's been having. So it's not, you'd historically think it was there, but we have folks from customer success being more incredibly innovative, accounting, HR, you name it. And I just think it's fantastic. So we've got an innovative culture. It's key to everything we do, and we are more than doubling down on it in 2021. A huge part of our budget is going to go to R&D and innovation in 2021. By far the biggest investment we've ever made to take our already incredible lead in the space when it comes to technology and innovation and quadruple it in 1 year. So
this is so it's interesting. So Tim Barber was one of your founders, right? So
yeah,
and he was very innovative, with some of the algorithms and other things that he brought to the table, right? So.
Yeah.
But it seems like the growth that's taken place and the exponential growth that you've had to do at Count has just, it's just way off the charts, because where you were 10 years ago and where you are today is so different, isn't it, Brad?
Oh yeah. It's night and day difference. So even the product where we were at that point, it was good enough for us to sign people like Staples, who at the time was the number 2 online retailer in the world. That was our first client.
Mm-hmm.
Right out of the chute, right out of our first trade show where we launched, we signed them. And then in the first year we signed Chase Payment Tech, now Chase. And they were at the time, and still are, I think, 51% of the world's card not present transactions. And we became their exclusive fraud control. We were less than a year old. I'll never forget that. The Chase guys, this is Chase, and they wanted to meet in Boise to see our facility and everything. And we were using Costco desks, Costco tables for desks.
Yeah.
It was 15 of us, I think, less than 15.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really want them coming here. So I kept saying, oh no, we'll fly to you. And little did they know it was like a third of the company at the time was flying to them. But
Wow.
But finally they said, well, we really need to come out and check out your spot and everything. So I had to think fast. So I called Bob Custra and said, do you have I see there's a home game coming up against Oregon. It's the one with the ill-fated punch, I think. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but can we rent a suite? And he's like, yeah, I'll get you one for $5,000. And the cheerleaders come into my suite at halftime. We'll have them come into yours and stuff. So, and I said, now the big ask, can I use the conference area there and have a meeting all day the day before? He's like, sure. So they show up to Boise. I'm like, you could go to our offices, but we got a better experience for you. We're going to have the meeting overlooking the fabled Smurf turf. And they were like, oh, whoa. So
Wow.
they never came to the office. We took them to the Smurf turf for an experience. And then the next day, took them to our suite in the game. Best $5,000 I ever spent, because I suspect by the time they got back on their plane, they were like, oh, we never saw their office.
But that was the experience. You gave them the experience, right?
Oh yeah, they loved it. They were talking about it for years to come. Like, the best sporting event I've ever been to was Boise State football. So,
And that was a fantastic game, at the same time. But this most important thing that you did is that you actually gave them something that is now you build upon, and now it's been. I mean, they were one of your. I remember they were one of your top customers. I mean, Chase is one of the top on the planet. I mean, when it comes down to.
Yeah. Now we do Chase and Blue Snap and Braintree and Barclays and Moneris, who's the largest in Canada, and we have 50 plus of those type of partners, and then 9,000 plus customers across the entire globe. And we do transactions in literally every country that we're allowed to by the federal government each day, including Antarctica. I think the report I got was that we did 24 transactions last calendar year in Antarctica. They were all to travel sites to get the heck out of Antarctica. But and then we did like 36 transactions in Vatican City for video games. So there's some cardinal or something in Vatican City that really likes video games. So
it's probably part of your Notre Dame connection you have.
That's right. Go Irish, number 2.
That's right. That's hey. So one thing I was kind of interesting, Brad. This is you were just talking about this disruption and differentiation. They have that D&D type thing.
Differentiate and disrupt. Yep.
Yeah, differentiation and disrupt. I think Clayton Christensen had this whole model about innovative disruption, right? I mean, there's a lot of similarity between that. How do you, as a leader, and you have a great team that you work that's part of Count that you've amassed. How do you? You do, yeah. But how do you stay on top of this innovation? I mean, like this Clayton Christensen stuff it sounds very similar, but do you go, how do you find new ways or the new directions for Count?
Well, first and foremost, we listen to our customers. We have regular interactions with them. I regularly speak with the CEOs of our top customers. Ideally, I like to talk to one a day. It doesn't always happen, but find out what we're doing well. More importantly to me than what we're doing well, if we're failing on anything. And third, and most importantly, maybe, number 2 is most important, but a close second would be what other problems they're having with fraud, so we can start thinking about, is there any way we could solve for that problem? So 1, customer driven. 2, we're constantly monitoring what the bad guys are doing and looking for new ways, trying to anticipate what the next step's going to be. A big part of our culture is it's Wayne Gretzky, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where it's going to be. And we do that a lot. Spend a lot of time on that, particularly in my head of product. And 3, we try and encourage everybody in the company to innovate. So it may not be a customer driven need. It may not be an industry driven need. It may just be something that they've discovered while they're looking at the data, like, hey, here's a new trajectory, a new kind of fraud that we can stop. That happened this year several times with a couple products, but like our data on demand product, where we can supply our customers with very important intelligence about the transaction, through in real time. But also, we realized that we could stop because of the vast amount of data that Count collects and creates. We could stop a number of different types of insurance fraud, and that's, I think, going to be one of our bigger. It's going to be a big product in the next year or two. So it's just always looking at the data, always anticipating where things are going to be, and always having everyone in the company know that they not only can innovate, but we expect them to innovate, and we encourage them to innovate, and we compensate them if they innovate. So,
which is really you tie all the metrics together, right? But
yeah,
but the key is also, the heart of that has always been the customer, right? So I love
yeah,
that. I know it was just over 4 years ago when CBC came in and made almost an $80 million investment.
yeah. An $80 million A round. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought that was phenomenal. But what was really interesting is you just said this about how you always try to reach out to a customer a day or something like that.
Yep.
What struck me is that you said, every week I reach out to somebody that's in the VC world so I can stay in touch and I can start making those connections. I mean, um, I thought that was a lot of foresight went into that. I mean, did that help you a lot as you grew Count then?
Oh yeah, I started that early on. Um, I developed relationships so that when time came to raise capital, I had really an enormous Rolodex of people, and I had force ranked them into who I wanted to talk to, both from the venture side to the growth equity side to the private equity side. And I maintain the contacts to this day. A little bit less frequent cadence, and I have inbound probably now. I definitely have at least one a day inbound me, but that's just because of where Count is now. But back then it was me pushing out. And I did it from the day we incorporated the company, knowing eventually I'd need the relationships and then the people who rose to the top of the list. It was actually a tremendous way to help grow the business in the early days, because they would get excited about what we were doing, and then they'd say, so how do we invest? I'm like, well, we're not ready yet, but when the time comes, we'll reach out first to the friends of Count, which begged the question every single time, well, what's it take for me to become a friend of Count? I'm like, well, everybody's money's green. And everybody says they have contacts. I'm going to prioritize the people that have actually shown me they have contacts. So people who facilitated intros to potential customers of Count, potential partners of Count, those people become friends of Count, and those will be the first people I reach out to if there's a process. And sure enough, within 24 hours, I'd have like email intros to the CEO of these various potential customers. And I was a man of my word, but everybody who did that got moved to the top of the list as in my friends of Count category.
So you were priming the pump to be able to look for the next stage of capital, but in so doing, you were actually having them make entrees into other connections, so you could have them as other customers. They could make that connection for you.
Totally. And then fortuitously, when I was appointed to be on the Federal Reserve Board, they for Salt Lake City branch of the San Francisco Fed, and ultimately became chair. You interact regularly with CEOs of and CFOs of the biggest companies in the world, like the San Francisco Fed at the time. We had the CFO of Costco, the CFO of Chevron, the CEO of Nordstrom, you name it. And you become friends with these people because you're interacting with them all the time. And so between that and between the friends of Count and things, that really helped us grow the business. And then just having a great product and a great team like the Rich Stuppies and Jim Gasways of the world. Jim's the CTO, Rich is the Chief Customer Experience Officer. And folks like that, and Kate Lenz has been here since inception as the head of HR. I mean, having those people, hiring the right people and building the right solution and driving the sales thereby, that's a winning formula.
And that's having Rich was the chair of the Idaho Technology Council that you've been a part of since then, and Jim's been a big part of it on our board and helping drive the computer science department of Boise State. And there's so many places that your team's connected, and and Kate's awesome too. So, and she's part of Idaho Workforce Development Council. So you
Yeah.
guys are integrated in the community so well. So
Well,
let's
we've been involved with you guys since day one. I'll never forget the meeting where you came into my office and said, I'm gonna start this thing. And I said, yeah, go meet my uncle who did it in Utah. And I think you went and met him, didn't you?
I did, and he was your he
Great
was
uncle.
yeah. And I talked with him and had a great conversation. And he was Governor Levitt's kind of a technology czar, right?
He was the one who, when they started, they decided they weren't really a technology state. So Governor Levitt said, we're going to leverage the Olympics and we're going to put in a technology czar and we're going to turn Utah into a tech state. So it was kind of like one of those, if we build it, they will come. And so they just went around with everything pre-Olympic with the state of Utah and said, oh yeah, and we're a tech state. And here's the map of all the cool tech companies. There weren't that many then, but look at it now. It's crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. And he did a major job. And I remember meeting with Governor Levin when I was down there working with Verizon Wireless, and he basically said, I just moved there from Boise, and he said, oh man, I'm so envious of Boise because they have Micron and HP and INL, and I mean in Idaho.
Yeah.
And but boy, were they doing some amazing stuff through your uncle and through the governor to be able to change the whole landscape. So let's talk about that really quick as our last segment, Brad. One of the things that I think has gone really, I remember talking with you probably on several occasions how people on your board and other people were trying to get Count or Kinetics at the time probably to move to Silicon Valley, and feeling like they needed to maybe you needed to be closer to the action, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But you were really strong at resisting and be able to show how we needed to build the Idaho ecosystem up. Can you talk a little bit about that and what we can do in the future to build even, like, what progress have we made, and then what do we need to continue to build upon this to be able to build even a stronger technology ecosystem in Idaho?
Well, it was frankly darn near everybody we talked to that were friends of Count when we started our A-round process. They're like, so how open are you to moving to the Bay Area? I'm like, 0%. Somewhere between 0 and 1%, but closer to 0. And the concern at the time was availability of talent, which I think we've gone a long way to solving for through Boise State's program, et cetera. The growth of it, and the access to additional capital, because there's not that much here. It's improving, and certainly more capital has been raised from private equity funds and venture funds in the last 5 years than probably the rest of Idaho history combined by a long shot. When you think about the truck stops and the Clearwaters and Cradle Points and et cetera. I mean, it's remarkable. And then finally, the ease of access to get here. And I do remember one of our, I got the Fed to host a board meeting here, and we had the entire San Francisco Fed here, and they came out and said, this was the most expensive board meeting we have because flights to Boise are more expensive from everywhere around the country than anywhere we've ever had it before, including Hawaii. Wow. I'm like, oh, well, you guys got to fix that. And it takes too long to get there from the east, and it takes too long to get there from these places. Then I heard from our board, actually CVC's, one of their staff members told me it's just impossibly hard to get to Boise. Takes a full day to get there, basically from New York and Boston, where most of the board members are from. And I think that is probably the remaining hurdle, because we've solved to a great degree for talent and accessibility of talent. And we're able to import a lot easier now because there's a lot more companies now that have been successful in tech. And if it doesn't work out at Count, then there's always Truck Stop or Cradle Point, or, and the great part is all these companies have great CEOs. I'm friends with all of them, and they're amazing. So I think the last remaining problem is access to capital and it's a problem because it's of the flights. We still don't have a direct flight to the East Coast. I mean, I don't know if that Atlanta flight ever kicked off on Delta, but I'm thinking more New York City, where the capital is.
Yeah.
To the degree we can make it easier to get to Boise, we'll get more investors coming in regularly to provide capital to the companies to take them from their A to their B or their C or whatever, even their A, frankly, from the venture funds. But I think that's the remaining problem to solve for. I actually mentioned that to the governor yesterday. I met with him and said, this is still a problem. We've got to solve for this. We've got to get a direct flight to New York, and I think we can fill it. And I'd be surprised if we couldn't. It only has to happen each direction once a day. But if we really want to grow businesses in Idaho, we've got to make it easier for the people who have the money to get here. And I think that's the remaining challenge. Still got to work on everything else, but that's the big hurdle right now.
Yeah, still keep on growing the talent level, getting Boise State to graduate as opposed to 135, get them to 200. Keep on going.
Back when we started IZEA, it was 24 graduates a year, and that was the primary goal.
9 faculty back then, and now it's grown a lot. But we have to keep that pedal down. We have to keep working with Dr. Trump. We have to keep working with Amit and everybody in the legislature to appropriate fundings to be able to make this happen. So, but I think that, Brad, that they're supposed to be launching that flight to Atlanta, but now we've got to work on the New York angle. So I think
but Atlanta helps, but the money is in New York.
Yep.
So, and we can already get money from San Francisco here in an hour and a half direct, right?
Yeah.
But you can't make it so it's a 2-hop for the New Yorkers because their time is valuable. So
totally agree with you on that. Well, you know what, Brad, you've been very, very appreciative of your time that you've taken with us. We also know that I'm going to call you one of the phenomenal leaders in Idaho because you're a leader on several fronts. Appreciate all that you do for not only making Idaho a better place from a industry standpoint and business, but you also make it a better place because of the work you do with your other personal initiatives you have. So thank you so much for all you do.
Look, Jay, thank you. And I got to tell you, that time we first met in ClickBank's office, I thought, good luck, buddy. I was supportive of you, but I was like, it's going to be a long hoe to row. But you, to a great degree, single-handedly with your vision, created an organization that's remarkably beneficial to Idaho, remarkably beneficial to everybody engaged in technology. And a lot of it was single-handed and just through your pure not willing to give upness. So you've done amazing things, far exceeded anything I thought you'd ever do. And that's not a criticism of you. It's just, there's sometimes headwinds in this state. So we wouldn't be where we are today were it not for you, Jay. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brad. And let me make sure I tell you that in that meeting we had, you said, count me in as the first supporter of the Idaho Technology Council. So it was, and you were. So thank you so much for the work and the support you've done. And we'll look forward to many other things. And maybe at some point, I know you were talking about apps before, but we'll keep that abs thing going on, right?
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, Bruce Lee. Yeah, I know that's going to be working.
Yeah. If he was still alive, we'd do a one-on-one fight, I'm sure. But
that's exactly right. And you keep yourself healthy, Brad, and have a great Thanksgiving. All right.
Thanks, buddy. Good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, and special thanks to Brad Wiskirchen for being a phenomenal leader. I just want to make sure let everybody know that on December 3rd we're having our virtual Vision Idaho meeting. We'd love you to join us where we talk about the Idaho Knowledge Report 2020. You'll hear from key business leaders and economic leaders regarding transformation and some of the things we talked about today and how Idaho can really be a leader with innovation and technology. Governor Little will be there, Director Tom Keeley, and many business leaders will be there as well. So go to idahotechcouncil.org to register. And lastly, with Thanksgiving coming up, we hope that you all have a great Thanksgiving and join us in 2 weeks because within Idaho, this is Jay Larson. Keep you connected with industry and government because in Idaho,